Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of EPL Talk. And today's episode is all dedicated towards Liverpool because, yes, I don't know what the hell is going on with Liverpool at the moment, but that's the reason why I thought this should be a topic for today and we should discuss together, all of us, the PL fans. And I would love to get your opinions and invite as well. So, what is really wrong with Liverpool? And the things that we want to talk about are number one, what has gone wrong with the season? Really, and I'll cover some few fatigue factors. Yes, there are five major fatigue factors which are involved here. So we'll talk about that. What has really gone wrong so far? What history tells us? My personal belief always is if you want to know what is going on right now or what will happen, always go back to history. Now, it's not like history always repeat itself, but mostly it does. So we will talk about what history tells us. And lastly, how will Liverpool owners react? So we will talk about in a way about looking at Brendan Rodgers because what really happened. Because before Klopp, let's understand Premier League's most successful manager. And I know Liverpool fans will not at all agree with me, but Liverpool's most successful season was, yes, there was Champions League won, but if you have to talk about Premier League, the closest they ever came to of getting their hands was during Brendan Rodgers, and we all know what happened. He was acrimoniously sacked by, yes, the FSG owners, the Liverpool owners. So what really that tells us? How will they react? How will the fans react? So all of it also is something we will talk about. So let's get started. What has gone wrong? And yes, fatigue. This is the picture I thought which is the most apt with what really is going on with Liverpool. So let's say number one, last season. Yes, the number one fatigue was that they have a fatigue of last season. They are tired. 63 plus games played last year. League Cup, FA Cup. Yes, they won both of them. Then you have the Champions League final, which was, you have to admit, reaching up to Champions League final is no big deal. Asked Manchester City, they still haven't been able to do it. Will they do it this season? For another episode. But last season was really tiring for Liverpool and come to a pre-season which was more or less successful, but it's the tiredness still shows. The biggest reason, and that's why I have it highlighted because that's one of the biggest points. There are two major points that every Premier League fan would have to understand that they have been playing this kind of football, the rock and roll football, has been played for the last 6, 7 seasons. Yes, it doesn't seem like because the kind of energy, the kind of exuberance that Jurgen Klopp brings, it looks like as if he's fresh with ideas, he's fresh with his energy, and he tries to translate that to his players. But the reality is that he has been there for last 6, 7 seasons, and he has had the club play in the same way. The players come in, better players have come in, players like Virgil van Dijk has come in, but he has always tried to play the game in the same way. And playing in the same way has fatigued this Liverpool team. And combined with all other factors that we are going to talk about, it really is showing up now. And yes, with Premier League intensity. So you have to account for the fact that not only this rock and roll football, if you play in probably a Bayern Munich team with, the kind of competition, although Bayern Munich is also struggling at the moment, not really struggling because then you will think about that Alex Ferguson moment. Struggling? Really? So I'm not gonna say struggling, but yes, Bayern Munich has had some off results lately. But then largely he can play that rock and roll kind of game over there because other than Bayern Munich, who was there, who is there. So, but with Premier League, every game is a tough competition. Every game you have to put your best. So it's really about the Premier League intensity, which is going on for the last 6, 7 seasons, and that's the fatigue level they have. The next fatigue level, and this is something I have to admit that I borrowed from somewhere else, which is the people out here in United States, because they had a very good point. Hearing the same message from the same coach, it has gone stale. When I say it has gone stale, what does that mean? You are hearing from the same manager the same kind of high intensity football, the high kind of pressing game. how would you react if you're getting the same message again? You ultimately will become insulated. I know what he's saying. I know. So it really has kind of become a same message for the same from the same coach for some of the players. And frugal in the transfer market. Can I think of Darwin Nunes and anybody else that has been great in their transfer window? I can't imagine that. Salah is still there. He was about, a player who has been going about his contract issues for the whole season last year or last season. And he's still there on a better pay. I don't think Pep Guardiola would really appreciate that, or Sir Alex Ferguson. I always consider him as the benchmark of how a Premier League team needs to be run. They have been frugal. They haven't had much transfer business. And combine it with this fact, this is the second biggest aspect, losing titles to Manchester City. If I have to go back on a title winning team like Manchester City, they lost once, they came back next season. They lost once, they came back next season. That keeps the players motivated. That keeps the team hungry. Sir Alex Ferguson, think about it. Lost to Chelsea for 2 seasons, but they always had that hunger to come back. And they were second, but then there was a hunger to come back. And I just can't imagine what would have happened if, let's say, the third or the fourth season after that, Jose Mourinho would have continued to, win the Premier League, and as good as Sir Alex Ferguson was, Ronaldo, yes, Cristiano Ronaldo, would he have continued to play, or he would have left a season before that? I don't want to play for a team which is coming second. But here you have the same squad, the same team which is playing well, playing under Klopp's instruction, high intensity football, fatigued completely, yet giving their best, but continuing to lose the titles to Manchester City no matter how good they are. And that really has got them to the fatigue level which they are at. They're just tired. They just can't get past City. They can't get past the same message from the coach, and they just can't get past all the other things that we have talked about. So that really is where this Liverpool season has gone wrong. If you agree with me, then please give me a like, subscribe. But if you don't, also give me some comments on why do you think these are not the reasons. But that's my opinion. These are the major reasons. Now, is this first time that's happening to Klopp? Nope, that's not the first time that's happening to Klopp. This whole saga, and I've tried to put it in kind of like a timeline of pre-season, then September, October, December, because large and large, except that winter break, most of the season is really similar to what happens in Premier League. So here I'm talking about his previous job at Borussia Dortmund, where he was the last manager at. And his last season with the team was exactly going the same way. Come pre-season, they were pretty great. Yes, they had lost their major striker, and I wouldn't say Sane was the not Sane. Apologize for that, but I forget his name now. But yes, Sadio Mane. So Sadio Mane was not a big like the star striker like Robert Lewandowski, but yet he was very important player for them. Like it was like a partnership where Salah was the guy who was in the main frame, but then like Rooney in United heydays, everybody used to talk about Ronaldo, but gone Ronaldo, yet they still managed to win the titles. Why? Because Rooney was the peripheral figure and he continued to be there. Ask Jose Mourinho, that's how he would also say they won the Europa League as well as the League Cup. It was, yes, Zlatan's goals, but then it was Rooney who used to be that peripheral figure. So, anyways, coming back to the preseason, so they won the matches, but they had lost Robert Lewandowski, and yes, Pierre Aubameyang was there, but then and they actually won a lot of matches in the preseason. But really, that was one of the key things that happened. So I'm gonna compare it again with what's going on here versus what's going on in the past with Borussia Dortmund. So come September, what happened was they picked up some injuries. So thankfully this time, yes, they are injuries, but they're not as bad as your main central defender. Like at that time, there was Matt Hummels. He was uh, injured. There were a lot of players who were injured at that time. So Liverpool doesn't have that problem, but Dortmund had those issues which they were fighting. And yes, slightly similar to Liverpool in the sense that not those kind of major injuries, but they do have injuries happening. Then come October, They are still losing the matches, and Klopp was first time showing some pressure where he said the first statement. So October has just started. Let's wait and watch to see how Klopp's mood changes, how he reacts, how he gives his press conferences, because that was the time when he gave the press conference and said, I think it's completely normal for questions to be asked like this. You can list all the missing players, but so what? I think this is a face in a coach which I simply have to work it out. So that's what he came back, and then come December, what he said it. We just didn't become a stupid team overnight, and no longer know what works and what doesn't. That was the word of Jurgen Klopp, and that is when we know that he was just not able to handle the things well. So it's quite far. We also have this very strange season where it's divided into two parts. One is the pre-world before the World Cup, and one is after the World Cup. Yet this is where you will get to see the Klopp of September, which we have already seen, October, which remains to be seen, December, and then we come to the April thing. So, April, what happened in that season was Bayern Munich, they had a victory over the Borussia Dortmund, and the season was virtually over for them in terms of the title. But of course, they were still fighting for trying to get into the top four, where actually you have to think about that they were actually more of in a relegation zone for quite a while, and then yes, they slowly rose up the ranks, and by April they were in a comfortable position where they would not be in relegation, but they were still fighting on the top half. And that's when a bombshell came. What was that bombshell? That bombshell was that Jurgen Klopp himself said, I want to be released from my contract by end of the season. And that suddenly changed the whole thing for Borussia Dortmund. Suddenly they sprang to life. Uh, the what do you say, the DFB Pokal final, and sorry, they went to the final, and they actually saw off the Bayern Munich team, and also they won quite a good set of matches. But that time the dam was already broken. Klopp, as Klopp is, he had decided that I'm done with this team now. And the reason why he said this is because he said maybe it's better if what he said is that you know it's better that the club focuses on rebuilding without any distraction or ties to the past. When I say the past, it means ties to him. He wanted the club to retry with another manager and maybe with some fresh ideas. So that's when he just said, I'm gonna leave now. Now think about it. And I'll tell you the aftermath as well. So, but again, if you're liking what I'm saying, do please like, subscribe, and share. But let's continue with this story because it's a very fascinating story. What was the aftermath? And it was a very interesting aftermath. The director, Hans Joachim, he said he confessed that he regretted parting ways with Klopp. Now think about it. What's going on with Liverpool? And perhaps we should have given him entirely new team to work with rather than a new coach. Can you imagine if Sir Alex Ferguson is not performing and he's not getting the team as well? What would he be? And imagine Manchester United would have sacked him. And that's what every club is doing these days, and which is very surprising. Every club, rather than changing and chopping the players to support the manager, they're really chopping the manager. They don't understand the dynamics. A team only works like a team for few years. After they have normed, performed, everything, they need to be broken up. Who else but Sir Alex Ferguson would tell you? And maybe it would have been better we had replaced the entire team and not the coach, he wrote. It was clear to me that we would never get a coach like that again. But we will always find the good players. This is what the Borussia Dortmund director had told after years of, working with Klopp. Now, the next question really comes is, and this is a mistake, so, yeah. So the next thing is, how will the owners and the fans react? Well, I think the fans will always continue to support Klopp. I think he has got enough of equity with what the manager has done so far. They would not, at least not this season, is when they will blame the manager. They have gone through this rut for a while. When it was 2 seasons or 3 seasons ago, after winning the title, they had a huge set of injury issues and they just gave away the title to Manchester City as well as the, but they could somehow get the fourth spot. So that was the solace. So this season, I think the bare minimum for Klopp will be at least get the fourth spot. But there have been seasons where they have not got the fourth spot as well, which is, when they actually came seventh and eighth, which was the rebuilding period for the Liverpool team. So most likely the fans would stick with Liverpool this season. They would not have any issues with, even if the team doesn't finish fourth, because they know that this club and this manager is much more than just this one season. So not worried about the owners, how will they react? I think the worry, sorry, not worried about the fans, how they will react, but the worry is about the owners. And which is where I come to the Brendan Rodgers saga. Why was Brendan Rodgers sacked? He was sacked because, yes, there were few issues about the way he boasted. There was a very famous press conference. When I was researching this, I came across a very famous press conference that he had held. You know, the season after, they were just this close of winning the title, and then the Steven Gerrard slip. This is where, after 13 matches of unbeaten run in the next season as well, Brendan Rodgers thought that everything was going good, everything was attributed to him. He had coached the players well and everything, and so on and so forth. But inside, he couldn't believe, he couldn't get the perception of the owners, his masters, his bosses. He just couldn't get their perception. They thought that Brendan Rodgers wasn't doing a good job integrating the players. He wasn't doing a good job. He was giving some preference to the English players. And they thought the way they had got him to replace Kenny Dalglish as well as Roy Hodgson, which was a mistake. They thought that Brendan Rodgers, who was from Swansea City at that time, had done brilliant things there. Swansea has got some great reputation. But anyway, sticking to the point. So Brendan Rodgers was thought to be bringing some fresh ideas, which they thought were over now, and he had become stale. And this is where they brought in Klopp with some fresh ideas. So the reason why I'm saying you all this is because the owners are ambitious. The owners, yes, they have got some equity for Klopp, and the good part is that Klopp hasn't done those kind of press conferences so far, like the way Brendan Rodgers did. So would they stick with Klopp? I think the objectives, expectations, if you have played games like FIFA, that's what you will see. There are some objectives and things which are told to manager to achieve by the owners. So all this will be given, but the question really is, will the owners, how will Klopp behave this season, as well as how the owners will react to that behavior. So it's a very fascinating season, how Klopp will go, how Liverpool will go, even though Liverpool, I think, can safely be now ruled out of the title race, although it's a very risky thing because this season nobody except probably Arsenal has hit the top gear yet. So, and this we'll talk about in a separate podcast. But yes, this is the season for Liverpool to be watched, as always, as Manchester United, as Chelsea, as Tottenham. Yes, Tottenham also we can say are relevant because of Antonio Conte. If not Antonio Conte, probably we would have said Tottenham is definitely not in the title race, but they are relevant again. So Liverpool will remain relevant. So the question really is, how will this season go for Liverpool? If you like this, again, please subscribe, share your comments, give me your feedback, and let's keep watching. Tomorrow is the derby. Go United.